What's going on, UFC fans? I'm back here with another video here set for you guys. Gonna be giving my in-depth breakdown and predictions for the UFC Atlanta Joaquin Buckley versus Kamaru Usman card. Finally, we're getting back to fight nights being in a crowded arena. I think the next six events or five events after this one are going to be like continuously in an arena, whether it be for a pay-per-view or whether it be for a fight night. So finally, the UFC and Dana White has been listening to us about how we've been talking about the Apex and less cards in the Apex. Obviously, we're not going to completely get rid of it, but it's going to be less of it, thankfully. And starting off this card, we have Jamie Lynn Horth versus Vanessa Demopoulos. Jamie Lynn Horth is coming off a loss against Miranda Maverick, where I thought it was pretty even against these two girls, but Miranda Maverick obviously got the upper hand on that one. And Demopoulos is on a two-fight losing streak as of right now against Jacqueline Mormon and Talita Alenkar. I just like Jamie Lynn Horth as a better fighter. I think she's just better overall compared to Vanessa Demopoulos, especially on the feet. I think that Demopoulos has nothing to answer for against Jamie Lynn Horth. And I think Horth is going to get back to her winning ways and pretty much dominate Demopoulos because I think Demopoulos is trash. And moving on up the card, we got Phil Rowe versus Angelusa. Phil Rowe is on a two-fight losing streak as of right now to Jake Matthews and Neil Magny. Hasn't fought in about like a year. And Angelusa is coming off a loss to Gabriel Bonfim. Before that, he had the no contest against, what's this dude's name? I'm forgetting this guy's name, but he fought Randy Brown. Yeah, I'm losing his name. But he was getting whooped in that one. Brian Battle. There we go. Brian Battle. That's the guy that he was actually going against. I'm going to go with Phil Rowe in this one. I just think that this is going to be very close and competitive between these two guys. Angelusa is pretty okay. He's a marauder type of fighter, dense based. A little bit of a heavier muscle mass type of guy, built like a tank compared to Phil Rowe, who's a little bit more on the rangier side in terms of things. I just I'm more confident in Phil Rowe to be able to get things done. Both of these guys are kind of on losing streaks in my eyes, compared to the Angelusa. Him actually losing that fight against Brian Battle and them not rebooking that. I think he would have got KO out even longer than that, and or even more in that fight in the rematch if they ever booked that. But yeah, I'm gonna go with Phil Rowe in that one. I just think that I just think he's a little bit better. So yeah, moving on up the card, we got Ricky Simone versus Cameron Smotherman. Ricky Simone is coming off a crazy KO victory over Javid Basharat. Before that, I think he was on like a 3-fight losing streak or something of that nature. And Cameron Smotherman is taking this fight on short notice, a month off the loss that he had to Surrey City. Completely different type of fight against Surrey City versus Ricky Simone. Ricky Simone, you have to be able to worry about obviously the wrestling, the takedowns. Stand up is pretty okay and it's pretty decent. He obviously still carries a lot of power, but I think Cameron Smotherman is going to be able to outpoint him. I just think his boxing is a lot more complete and a lot better compared to a guy like Ricky Simone. Even though he was getting a little bit manhandled and taken down by Surrey City, I think he's going to be a lot more weather for wear in this fight, and I'm going to go with Cameron Smotherman. Moving up the card, we got Cody Durden versus Jose Ochoa. Cody Durden, as of right now, is coming off a beat down from Joshua Van, who hasn't been beaten down as of recently. Joshua Van is an absolute tear as of right now. He's in 1-4 the last of the fights of his recent career, that being Cody Durden. Last time he had a win was against Matt Schnell, who we put in a ninja choke against him. And Jose Ochoa, he lost to Loner Kavanaugh in his UFC debut, which is a very close and competitive fight, but Kavanaugh obviously pulled it off with the takedowns and more striking on the feet. This one I think is going to be very close. I'm going to go with Cody Durden in this one. I just think experience-wise, he's going to be more, wild up to it. I think he's going to get some takedowns on Jose Ochoa, going to be able to have some top control and dominant positions. On the feet, I think Ochoa is going to be giving Cody Durden some problems, but I don't think he's up to the par of like Joshua Van. He may be getting to Joshua Van levels maybe a little bit later in his career, but as of right now, I don't think he's Joshua Van-esque as of right now. So I'm going to go with Cody Durden on that one. And moving on up the card, we got Chris Matinho, the return of him versus Sugar Sean O'Malley. but it seems like that's what they're going with in this route. But the new Sugar Sean O'Malley, as it's looking as of right now, Malcolm Wellmaker coming off his highlight reel KO against Cameron Simon, who has been on a losing streak as of recently, but is a pretty still. He's not a prospect anymore, but he's a pretty decent fighter in the flyweight division, or excuse me, the bantamweight division. And you have Chris Matinho, who's on a 5-5 win streak as of right now on the regional scene. He's gotten his shit together for the UFC to be able to come back and mount some type of way to get some type of confidence in this one. But I think it's going to be pretty similar to how it was with Sugar Sean. Sean couldn't be able to get Matinho out there easily, so I think that Malcolm Wellmaker is going to have a little bit of trouble in this one, especially with the confidence, momentum, with Matinho trying to be able to prove himself that he's rightfully back in the UFC for the right reasons. And but I do think that Malcolm Wellmaker is going to be able to go in there, get some type of pushback on this one, unlike the last one that he had against Cameron Simon. And I eventually think that he's going to get the KO in this one, though, because his power is just so explosive and on the feet, things that he's able to do. I'm going to go with Malcolm Wellmaker by KO. Now moving on up the card, we got the battle of the O-Heads, Michael Chiesa versus Court McGee. Michael Chiesa is on a 2-fight win streak as of right now, both by RNC. To Tony Ferguson and Max Griffin. Not the greatest wins, not the greatest names, especially how they're looking as of right now, but they're wins. And Court McGee is coming off a sub right now against Tim Means. Both of these guys are pretty much old, wild vets that are probably going to get tired if this goes 3 rounds. This might go 3 rounds. But if I were to put my eggs in a basket that I kind of don't want to be able to put it into, I'm going to go with Michael Chiesa. He'll probably get another RNC sub in this one. And moving up the card, we got Paul Craig versus Rodolfo Balotto. Already predicted this fight. This was supposed to be like the co-main or future fight on one of the UFC Apex events, and it got canceled like an hour before it happened. Gonna go with Rodolfo Balotto on this one still. Gonna get the KO over Paul Craig, who has nothing but just a body kick in this one that he has on the feet to be able for Rodolfo Balotto to be able to worry about. And besides that, I don't think Balotto's gonna worry about anything else besides the BJJ, obviously, if it goes to the ground. And moving on up the card, we got Alonzo Menifield versus Umar Sy. Alonzo Menifield is coming off a close split decision win over Julius Walker, where they pretty much just looked like the similar fighter in there, even though I kind of was leaning more towards Walker in that one. I think he was just out-voluming Menifield in that one. And Umar Sy is an undefeated prospect from France, 2-0 in the UFC. Both of the fights that he had in the UFC so far has been KOs that he's already got. But a big high step-up level, in my honest opinion, for Umar Sy in this one. Really from his competition that he had beforehand to Alonzo Menifield. Menifield carries a lot of power, but besides that, he's not really much to be able to see. I'm going to go with Umar Sy in this one. I think he's just going to outpoint Alonzo Menifield in this one, give a lot of problems, have a lot of trouble because Alonzo Menifield fights in there like a goddamn zombie, like he doesn't even have a brain in his head. And so since he fights like a dumb idiot, even though he does carry a lot of power and he can be able to rock you on your chin, I'm going to go with Umar Sy on this one, who I think has a lot more capabilities and more brain cells in his head. And moving on up the card, we got Cody Brundage versus Mansour Abdul Malik. Man, Cody Brundage is coming off that KO victory where it was an absolute war with Julian Marquez. And they were nearly about to cut this dude if he got another loss on his resume, especially against a guy like Julian Marquez. And now they're just going to feed him back to the Wolves, man. Mansour Abdul Malik is an undefeated prospect with 2 KOs in the UFC so far. I mean, he's been absolutely on a tear so far, and I expect the same thing to come out in this fight against Cody Brundage, even though it is a level step up for Mansour Abdul Malik. But I just think that he's way more talented, and the writing's on the wall pretty much what Cody Brundage is in his career. And moving on up the card, we got Cody Brundage versus Raoni Barcelos. I think this fight is going to be an absolute banger between these two guys. Cody Garbrandt took about a year off against his loss against Davison Figueiredo. And Raoni Barcelos is on a 2-fight win streak as of right now, and especially bringing a lot of hype towards himself with the win over Peyton Talbot, pretty much just crushing the hype with him and fraud checking him as well. This one is very, very tough. Raoni Barcelos fights like Jose Aldo, but is a lot more older, has been through the ringer. Same thing as Cody Brundage. He's been on it as well. I do think that this is a level below a Davison Figueiredo for Cody Garbrandt, especially how Davison Figueiredo has been in the bantamweight division so far. You kind of already know his level, and that fight against Davison Figueiredo was kind of close until Figueiredo took him to the ground. It was kind of much pretty over. And Barcelos does have that capability. He's shown that against Payne Talbot, but I do think Cody Garbrandt has better takedown defense than Payne Talbot, or I would assume that he does because he's been so long in the UFC. And I'm going to go with Cody Brundage on this one. I just think that he outpoints Ronnie Barcelos, make Barcelos look a little bit old. He's not going to be worrying about the takedowns as much as a Payne Talbot because Talbot obviously didn't have that type of experience and level up to par to deal with a guy like Ronnie Barcelos in his career so far. So I'm going to go Cody Garbrandt in this one. I think he's going to get a unanimous decision, 29-28, similar to something like that, and get a nice victory and get a nice win for himself in the column for Cody Garbrandt. And moving on up the card, we got Edmund Shabazian versus Andre Petroski. Edmund Shabazian is coming off a KO win against Dilip Budka. And Andre Petroski is on a 3-fight win streak as of right now in the UFC. No real notable names, if we're being quite honest with each other. Both of these guys have fought, pretty much, not the who's who, but they fought some names. They have some names on the resume, whether they be wins or losses. Petroski is, pretty okay, kind of a density maxer, pretty much a musclehead, a tank builder in this division that he's in as of right now. And then Ben Shabazian, I just think he's a lot more smoother, crisper, and looser, and more fluid just on the feet. And while it's kind of a wash in terms of like the wrestling, because Petroski, I do think that he is a pretty decent wrestler, but it's not like overwhelming. It's not like a very key factor. Like, oh my God, if you stuff his takedowns, or if you get a takedown on him and he's taking you down, it's pretty much over. No, I don't think that that's the case whatsoever. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Edmund Shabazi on this one. I just trust him more on the feet. Carries a lot more power, and I just think that he's overall just a little bit better than Andre Petroski in that one. And moving on to the co-main event, we got a WMMA fight between Thug Rose Namajunas versus Miranda Maverick. Rose is coming off a loss against Aaron Blanchfield, and Miranda Maverick, as of right now, is on a 4-fight win streak. No real names of note, if we're being quite honest with each other. I don't think Miranda Maverick is up to the caliber and level of fighter as a Rose Namajunas, even though Rose is not in her prime anymore and she's not the same type of fighter as she was previously. I just think Rose is she's just a better fighter than Miranda Maverick, if we're being completely honest with each other. So I'm going to go with Rose. I think she gets a unanimous decision victory over Miranda Maverick and makes it look pretty easy in that one. And we move on to the main event, which is Kamaru Usman versus Joaquin Buckley. Banger matchup in the main event. Kamaru Usman, as of right now, is on a 3-fight losing streak, and he hasn't fought in about 2 years. Last time out, he fought in late replacement versus Hamzat Chimaev, where he got absolutely decimated in that first round. But in the second and third, he made it very, very competitive. Honestly, could have been able to pull out a draw. Or if you think that the first round was just a 10-9 round, he could have been able to pull off the win. And before that, obviously, he had the 2 losses to Leon Edwards in the rematch and the trilogy fight for the welterweight belt. And Joaquin Buckley, as of right now, is on a 6-fight win streak. Last time out, he got a win against Colby Covington. He has wins against names like, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, Nursultan Rozaboyev. He's really, really stepped up his level and competition in the welterweight division, and he's proven that he's actually one of the best fighters as of right now in a stacked division that is welterweight. Pretty much this fight is old guard versus new generation coming in. You got Kamaru Usman, former pound for pound #1 fighter, reigning king, and was very dominant in the welterweight division for quite some time. And he's been out of the game for quite some time as well. He's been doing his thing with his podcast. A lot of people has been, thinking about him and where they're going to match make him. And obviously he's on a losing streak and he's not going to fight for a title, so he needs a fight. beforehand if he wants to be able to even think about regaining the belt back again, or is the belt even something that he's in question of, or is really looking for money fights. And with him picking up this fight against Joaquin Buckley, kind of shows where his mind is as of right now, where he wants to be able to get that type of fire under him, get that light, and really just ignite him forward to really think that he's up to that type of caliber of fighter that what he was before in his prime. Obviously, we know where we're getting with Usman. I think he stepped up his kick game a little bit better in that Hamza Chimaev fight, throwing a little bit more kicks. Obviously, the wrestling game that he has is, top tier, even though it's more of like a domineering, top control, dominant, smothering type of wrestling game. Not really much to be able to worry about in terms of chokes and BJJ. Boxing is very crisp and very clean for Usman, in my honest opinion. Has pretty good power. And Joaquin Buckley, man, like we talked about earlier on a 6-fight win streak, him being the new generation, him being on the pedestal that he's on as of right now. He's been on an absolute tear. The momentum, the confidence that he's just swinging towards his way. You can just see everything really just starting to come to fruition for him in terms of the grappling, in terms of the stand-up. His kick game is pretty underrated. His boxing is really good. His power is insane. He's just a ball of muscle. And while I see this matchup being very evenly competitive, especially early in this fight, I think it's going to be very, very hotly contested between these two guys, who I think actually really, really want it a lot, especially for Usman's side, who's been out for quite some time, looking for that hunger, looking for a name, looking to go against a younger type of fighter to be able to bring that out of him. I just think that Joaquin Buckley, as of right now, is just on a mission. He is on a mission. I think, is number 5 rank in the welterweight division as of right now. And I don't think a name or a person like a Kamaru Usman is going to stop him in his tracks. He's already laid the foundation of him getting all these veteran names on his resume to really build his rapport, or really just stack up the names that he has, that you look back on his resume when he's on this streak, or just when he's winning just in general, or how he's fishing his way out in this welterweight division. The names are pretty much just undeniable. Even though they're on their streaks and they're older, not in their prime, they're still names regardless of the fact. And I think that he's shown and proven that he's actually the real deal. And I think he's going to get a stoppage victory over Kamaru Usman, where if he does, I think for Usman, I think it obviously comes into question where retirement is coming. Maybe he retires after this fight, especially if he gets stopped, or if he just loses the fight in general on a 4-fight lose streak. I think you don't really lose your legacy out on that one, but there's not much really for him to be able to do, unless maybe he wants the Bilal Muhammad matchup really that badly. Besides that, I don't really see much else besides for Kamaru Usman in his career. But in this one, in terms of him versus Joaquin Buckley, I just think Buckley, as of right now, is more in his prime, more hungry, more ready, wants to be able to fish and try to be able to get his name and put his hat in the ring for a championship title shot, where Usman has already been there, done that. He's trying to be able to reclaim that fire again. We've already seen the story plenty of times where usually, it goes to the guy where he is the younger, more up-and-coming type of fighter, but sometimes you get the surprise upset of the old wily vet still having something left in the tank. But in this type of scenario, I just think that Joaquin Buckley has a lot more going forward for him, and I think he will get the job done against Kamaru Usman, which again I think will be a very close and competitive type of fight until Joaquin Buckley gets the finish. And yeah, that is my recap and predictions of what I think will go down in UFC Atlanta. Hopefully this fight card is going to be an absolute banger. I don't expect it to be a banger, but I expect a lot of finishes, and I expect a few fights to be very entertaining, especially that being the main event as well. Obviously, like this video if you obviously like this video. Comment your opinions on what you think is going to be going down on this UFC Atlanta card, who you predict will be able to win, how they will win, and much more if you want to just be able to just have this diverse conversation in the comment section below. And subscribe, UFC fans. You're here for a reason. You love this type of content, and I love that you love this type of content. So why not stick around even more longer? And thank you guys again for watching again, and peace.